Hi, this is Lee Greer. I'm the president and founder of the National Performing Rights Exchange, or NPREX. Today I'm going to demonstrate the NPREX platform for you. We'll do a demonstration as a record label, and what you'll find is that this demonstration is equally applicable to a music publisher. So let's log in. And having logged in, we'll be taken to a screen where we can select a number of different accounts. Let's select Label 7. First, let's review the works or recordings that are available for licensing through NPREX. Navigate to the Works tab and choose the Ownership Data screen. And here we see a grid containing a list of recordings available for licensing through NPREX. Let's look at the fields. We have an NPREX record ID, the territory in which the works are licensable, the name of the underlying recording, the composition or the recording ID, the ISW and ISWC and track ID, the ISRC, participant information, ownership information, and a field that indicates whether or not the recording is indeed licensable through the exchange. Now, this is at the participant level, so this indicates whether the participant's share of the recording is licensable through NPREX. Okay, so having looked at that, what do we do with this information? Well, let's look at the catalog content screen. The catalog content screen shows the works or recordings that reside within a given catalog. And you can see the metadata on the recordings here in the selected works grid. Okay, what if we wanted to add a new catalog? To do that, navigate to the catalog management screen. Once here, let's click Add a New Record. Let's create a new catalog called Test Cat 1 Label 7. Okay, now let's put a work into Test Cat 1 Label 7. To do that, click the drop down. Let's identify a work to insert into Test Cat 1. Let's choose 13 years. And here we've inserted the recording 13 years into Test Cat 1 Label 7. Now, let's take a moment to recognize something regarding licensing. Let's navigate to the Licensing tab and the License Profile screen. Once here, we're going to recognize that upon the creation of Test Cat 1 Label 7, NPREX creates license profiles for that particular catalog. A license profile is simply an offer to sell a license with respect to a particular catalog. An offer to sell a license contains standard terms and pricing terms. We will come back to this issue in a few moments. For now, I just wanted you to recognize that upon the creation of that catalog, NPREX automatically creates pending licensing profiles that the record label may use to extend offers to sell. Okay, so let's return to the Works tab, and now let's navigate to the Catalog Type screen. The Catalog Type screen is the screen that describes the properties of a particular catalog. Now, we created Test Cat 1 Label 7 from the catalog called Catalog 1 Label 7. By virtue of that creation, Test Cat 1 Label 7 inherited the properties of Catalog 1 Label 7. So let's look at the properties of Catalog 1 Label 7. They appear in the grid called Territory and Music Usage Types. All this says is that Catalog 1 Label 7 is licensable in the territory of the United States as to particular music usage types, and you see those in the second field. you'll notice that podcast is not selected. That means that this particular catalog of recordings is not licensable for podcast purposes. Let's say Label 7 wants to change that and make this catalog licensable to podcast. All you have to do is highlight the record, click Add Catalog Type, and then we will see that indeed podcasts is now selected as a licensable music usage type. Let's say that Label 7 wants to remove public broadcasting as a licensable music usage type. Similarly, just click on Remove Catalog Type, and then we will see that catalog type, that music usage type, has been removed. Okay, so that wraps up the various screens that we refer to as the catalog management screens in NPREX. What we'll do next is enter into licenses to sell with respect to these catalogs, and we'll do that next. So having reviewed the catalog management screens of NPREX, let's turn our attention to the licensing screens of NPREX. And to do that, let's start by navigating to the Licensing tab and choosing the License Agreement screen. The License Agreement screen is just a repository of any pending or executed license agreements between Label 7 and its counterparties, and we'll simply make note of the fact that here there are no pending or executed license agreements between Label 7 and counterparties. To make some, let's start by navigating to the Licensing tab again, and then to the License Profile screen. The License Profile screen is the screen where Label 7 enters offers to sell music licenses. Those offers are entered into its licensing profile grid here, which you'll notice is the top grid. The bottom grid contains licensing profiles of music users. These, of course, are offers to buy music licenses by the various music users on the NPREX platform. Now you'll notice that both grids share almost all of the same fields. The one exception, of course, is catalog. Only the rights holder has offers that contain a catalog. The music users, of course, are just making offers to license any catalog where the pricing terms are acceptable. Okay? So let's begin by making note of the particular fields. Now, the fields of a profile contain standard terms and pricing terms. The standard terms are the license period, the music usage type, in the case of a rights holder, catalog, and the rights type. The rights type is simply making note of the type of license and the type of underlying work. Okay? The pricing terms contain things like price floors, price caps, and various other measures that have to do with variable prices to licenses. Let's postpone a discussion of the details of the pricing terms, and let's just focus on the magnitudes of these terms. Okay? Now, what we'll make note of here is that these offers are, for the most part, pending. Okay? A pending offer is not something that can be accepted by a counterparty. The offer needs to be made active by the rights holder in order for a counterparty to accept the offer. All right? Acceptance on NPREX comes in two forms. It can be automatic or it can be manual. Automatic acceptance is enabled by the NPREX matching algorithm, and we'll talk about that in some detail later. For now, let's make note of the fact that the very last offer in the grid for the Label 7 is an offer to sell a performance license with respect to master recordings to any digital streaming service that is a hybrid. Now, this offer deals with Catalog 1 Label 7, and the license period for the offer is for the third quarter of 2020. And we'll make note, again, of the pricing terms here. We'll notice that this is an active offer. Okay? Now, if we restrict what we see in the music users screen to offers with respect to the usage type of digital streaming hybrid, we'll notice that the second row contains an offer from a music user by the name of Sandora for a music performance license for master recordings, and we'll make note of its pricing terms here and the fact that it also has a license period of Q3 2020. Now, if we are to, as label 7, enter this offer into the system, what happens at this point is that the NPREX matching algorithm runs and asks the question whether there are outstanding offers from music users whose pricing terms match those of this particular offer to sell. If so, then the matching algorithm matches label 7 with that particular music user, and we'll see that offer show up as an agreement in the license agreement screen. The second thing that happens is the pricing algorithm runs and generates a price for the particular licensing agreement entered into by the parties. So let's do two things at this point. Let's first review the license agreement screen, and indeed we see that this is now a pending license between Label 7 and Sandora, and the pricing terms are here. You'll notice that the allowable performance share is 0.12. The matching rule with respect to the allowable performance share is that the resulting magnitude of that variable is equal to the minimum of the rights holder's offer or the music user's offer. Here this is the magnitude of the music user's allowable performance share quoted in its offer. Okay, so what you can do, and we'll do this here in just a second, is you can view the license, you can sign the license, and any number of other things there. Let's forego that for the moment, and let's review the results of the pricing algorithm. The pricing algorithm ran and generated a price for this license of $2,270,711.47. Notice this, of course, is the agreement that we were just looking at, agreement ID 2473, a music user, Sandora. The record label 7, is the music owner. And the license covers 399 titles. Okay, so we just saw the results of running both the NPREX matching algorithm and the NPREX pricing algorithm. The result of the matching algorithms running is the existence now of a pending license between Label 7 and Sandora. And we see here on the final transaction screen the result of the running of the NPREX pricing algorithm. It is the existence of a price for the license. That price, again, is $2.27 million and some change. What I want to show you now is how to view the license and sign the license, and how to settle this transaction. So to view and sign the license, let's navigate back to the licensing tab and the license agreement screen. To view the license, simply click View. This, of course, is the electronic version of the music license. It contains the terms of the license, and its key terms are dynamically populated. You may, of course, print this license and save it to a PDF. To sign the license, simply return to the license agreement screen and click Sign. At this point, Label 7 is regarded by NPREX as having approved the license, and there is nothing further for Label 7 to do here. To settle the license, let us return to the final fee screen. To approve of the license, click the edit icon and then click Save and Approve from the drop-down. And at this point, NPREX regards Label 7 as having approved this transaction. Okay, so I have logged in now as Sandora, the buyer of the license in the transaction that we just saw. We do this to show you how Sandora will sign and the license and execute the transaction. As you'll see, the platform looks exactly the same from the music user's perspective, and you'll notice that when Sandora signed the license, the signature status now shows all signed. Okay? Now the settlement of the transaction looks exactly like what we saw for label 7. Here is the transaction. Again, all the fields that we saw before. And again, all Sandora must do is approve of the transaction. And at this point, both parties to the transaction have approved of the transaction, and now Label 7 may go and see its royalty report for this particular licensing transaction. Before we go back to Label 7, I do want to say something about the approval process for both licenses and finalized transactions. NPREX enables the settlement of a transaction to be automated. Essentially, any transaction that reaches the final transaction screen is presumed to be acceptable by the parties. To overcome this presumption, a party must object to the settlement of the transaction within 5 calendar days of the transaction hitting this screen. NPREX informs each party as to the remaining time for a cancellation through this field called countdown. Here, the party had 120 hours to cancel the transaction. And of course, this screen gets updated and refreshed each time the party hits this screen. So you'll see an updated countdown in that particular field to help you understand how much time you have before the settlement is regarded by NPREX as final. Okay, so I have logged back in as label 7, and the last thing that I want to show you, at least with respect to this particular transaction, is the royalty report available to label 7 now that label 7 and Sandora have approved of the settlement of the transaction. So to do that, let's navigate to the Reports tab and the Royalty Detail by Buyer screen. Let's choose the particular license period of interest. And having done so, now you will see all royalty detail associated with licensing transactions that have been settled where the license period of the particular license was 2020 quarter 3. Well, indeed, here we see that the license done between Sandora and Label 7 is here. That agreement ID again was 2473. And what you'll see here is a very detailed breakdown of royalty distribution information. Okay, let's just go through the fields real quick. But before I do so, I'll mention this table is exportable to a CSV file. Okay, so the fields in particular, the agreement ID, the license period, the territory ID and territory name, the music usage name according to NPREX and its type, again that's according to NPREX, the rights type, which is a code, the name of the right, here it was a sound recording performance license. We have the identifiers for the music user, we have identifiers here for the rights holder, and most importantly we have the license fee payable to the individual participant of a recording, and we have the fee paid to NPREX for facilitating the transaction. Okay. Again, this is a screen that is quite large, and you can navigate through the various pages of the report. So it's all available here to you. Again, this can be downloaded to a CSV file. Okay, so that summarizes the screens having to do with this transaction between Label 7 and Sandora. The next thing I want to talk about is just to dig a bit deeper into the dynamics at play in the matching and pricing algorithms, so we'll do that next. Okay, so having completed the demonstration of this transaction, I'd like to go back and discuss in some detail two elements of NPREX that are critical. The first is the matching algorithm. The second is the pricing algorithm. So let's start with the matching algorithm. And to facilitate this, let's navigate first to the licensing tab and the license agreement screen. Again here, the point I want to make is that we see here only one license. It has to do with a performance right to a master recording, and the music usage type is a digital streaming hybrid. Okay. Most important, I want us to notice that there are no licenses here with respect to a music usage type of podcasting. Okay, so at this point, let's return to the license profile. And let's suppose that Label 7 wants to sell a license to podcasters. Let's search each license profile for offers with respect to the music usage type of podcast. We'll notice very quickly here that Label 7 has an inactive offer for a sync master use license here with these terms. We'll also notice that Sandora has some offers to buy sync licenses for master use for a podcast music usage type. All right, we'll notice that the terms are matching. So if what I do here is activate this offer with matching terms, we'll find that the matching algorithm generates a match. Now the point of this exercise is to demonstrate the efficiency and the potential of the NPREX matching algorithm. Notice here, Label 7 had to do no work. All Label 7 had to do was enter acceptable pricing terms into NPREX. Imagine if there had been many Sandoras with various offers for licensing master uses for podcast purposes. Well, just as Sandora here had to do no work, none of those other music users would have had to do any work either. The marketplace does the work. The marketplace matches like-minded buyers and sellers of music licenses. Like any good marketplace, NPREX plays matchmaker. Okay, so having discussed the matching algorithm, the next question is probably, well, okay, so how does NPREX price those licenses, those direct licenses that result from the matching algorithm? Let us discuss that topic next. Okay, before closing, I want to spend just a few moments talking about the NPREX pricing algorithm. And to facilitate this, let's navigate to the modeling screen. Okay, so the modeling screen is for both buyers and sellers on NPREX, and the general purpose of this screen is to enable the party to estimate prices that may prevail on the NPREX exchange. This screen calls on the very same mechanism that generates market prices within NPREX itself. So again, the question is, what is the nature of the NPREX price mechanism? Well, I'm asked this a lot, and the answer is the price mechanism is a mathematical framework that was derived from economic theory and mechanism design theory, wherein the question posed is the following. What is the price mechanism or the the pricing structure that maximizes the profitability of licensing to a rights holder under the circumstances. Now, the circumstances include the existence of other rights holders selling to a music user who incidentally has only so much money to spend and a desire to avoid copyright infringement liability. Now, let me say one more thing about the music user. The music user views songs and or recordings as a combination of complements and substitutes. Certainly, a song and a recording of the song are complements, but recordings are in and of themselves substitutable. So you have a combination here of complementary and substitutable forces at work, and indeed most products that we encounter in the real world exhibit this very property. One last thing I'll mention is that the solution to this problem is a system of equations, and the solution of the system is in terms of optimal prices, and these prices are outputted here in the estimated price field. Okay, so just in general, that is the nature of the algorithm. Let's talk now about how it actually works, and this is of course where the modeling screen comes in. So first, what we generally do is we choose a particular type of music usage, and here we're going to choose digital streaming service hybrid, just to be consistent with everything that we've seen up until now. Annual revenue of the buyer, let's just say the annual revenue is $1 billion, and let's say that the license period is the third quarter of 2020, again, just to be consistent with the problem that we've seen up to this point. Now, the rights holder, jumping down into the grid, can be either a publisher, a record label, or a production music publisher. We'll stick with a record label. The record label can have various license types, all having to do with master uses. And so you may choose here among those. Of course, in the United States, the performance license is, of course, tied to a non-interactive streaming service. Under titles here, you see this is a share-adjusted count of unique recordings, okay? And this means that there are 399 unique recordings in a catalog. The performance count here is self-explanatory. It is share-adjusted. And then the performance share is, again, the relative share of total performances. And interpreted properly, this ties out to the allowable performance share, or the most or the maximum relative use of a catalog allowed by the license. Okay? Price parameter, what is that? That's a measure of bargaining power on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the highest. The benchmark parameter is the measure of bargaining power implied by prevailing prices. Now, these prevailing prices could be market prices, or they could be prices determined by a rate court proceeding. So, of course, for current song performance licenses sold by U.S. PROs, this can be interpreted as the market power wielded by PROs on behalf of publishers. Okay, and I've already talked about the estimated price here. That's the optimized price that results from the price mechanism. And incidentally, you may recognize the amount of the estimated price here at $2,270,000, $711.47. That's the price involved in the transaction between Label 7 and Sandora. Okay, so now you're starting to get a sense, I hope, of how this hangs together. You have a music usage type that implies a particular benchmark parameter. Okay, right? There's a particular benchmark parameter associated with a usage type and a license period. Okay, there is an agreed upon price parameter within the music license, which means it's agreed upon by both, in this case, Label 7 and Sandora. And there's a certain amount of music usage allowed by the music license. Okay, and that's captured here in terms of the title count and the performance share. So when you marry allowable music usage with the bargaining power of the underlying catalog and the ability to pay of the particular music user, and you run those through the price mechanism, the result is a series of prices. Okay, and again, I'll run the algorithm here just so you can see, and again, that price should be familiar to you. Okay, so here what I've done is do a very simple demonstration of the NPREX price mechanism. And let me say this is the cornerstone of NPREX. It makes NPREX possible. The price mechanism is what automates the generation of well-designed, willing buyer, willing seller prices agreed upon by the parties to a license, which incidentally is created by a matching algorithm, right, such that neither buyer or seller has to exert any effort in executing a license. So the potential of this price mechanism is extraordinary. It's something that the music industry certainly has never had. And I'm always happy to talk about the NPREX price mechanism. And I wanted the audience to see this. So thank you for the opportunity to show you this. And with that, I'll close this presentation. Again, thank you for your attention. And good night.